Impeachment as she gets an opportunity to plead her case.
President William Ruto now says his hands are tied over the rise in fuel prices despite public outcry over the high cost of living.
Meanwhile, Scottish court stops multi-million compensation case filed by Kenyan tea pickers against their employer James Finlay Kenya Limited.
Days to Christmas. Good morning and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Ndimuli. Do stand by for all our discussions this morning, especially to do with that impeachment motion before the Senate, as well as other highlights. But Wambaji,
Sina la kuamba.
Karibu tena.
Ni vizuri kukurudisha.
Hamjambo wapenzi watazamaji. Ni vema kuwa nanyi hapa katika makala ya Morning Cafe asubuhi ya leo. Jina langu ni Flora Limuki na tuko na show kabambe tuliokuandalia.
Hatutatulia leo. Watu wametoka Coast.
You're out here giving Josh Onsare and company
a run for their money.
Oh, yes. So
it's good to have you back. It's good to have you back.
Good to see you guys.
Oh, yes. And the music tool is standing in Ringit. It's raining cats and dogs out here. And the proverb this particular morning is, when chairs quick of rain, they speak. Find out which particular African proverb that is. Most definitely stick around for the entire kind of discussion from around right now, 6 a.m. all the way to 10 a.m. Even the whole rains that we do have. How safe is it on the roads? I'll be having that conversation at around 8 a.m. just to know what you should be doing, even as you prepare to go to a country or travel around the country. Remember Monday morning, that accident, that fateful accident that claimed 11 lives? We shouldn't be having that. But first, to the big story.
To a big story now, appeal court judges in Scotland have halted a multi-million-pound compensation case brought by Kenyan tea pickers against their employer James Finlay Kenya Limited. In a major setback to their case, the BBC reports that the workers have been told that they should seek redress in Kenya before the Scottish action can go any further. The workers claim they suffered musculoskeletal injuries because of working conditions on tea farms in Kericho region. They launched what is known in the Scottish legal system as group proceedings, a class action lawsuit seeking compensation. Now, James Finlay Tea is one of the world's biggest suppliers of tea, but has argued it has no connection to Scotland other than its registered historical address, and that the claims should be dealt with in Kenya. Lawyers for the claimants say 3,700 Kenyans are now involved, and that they are now considering an appeal to the UK Supreme Court. Let's now get the day's diary before we take a look at the dailies.
Well, and on today's diary, we start with the Principal Secretary for Basic Education, Belio Kipsang, is expected to supervise the distribution of the KCSE 2023 examination materials at the Deputy County Kisauni Sub-County container in Mombasa County, starting from around 6:15 a.m. this morning. And at the same time later, he will deliver a keynote address at the Kenya Primary School Heads Association, KEPSHA, at Sheikh Zahid Khalif Hall on the same this morning at around 10 a.m. And KCSE enters day 3 today as the candidates are expected to take the chemistry paper 2 exams as well as the English essays. And today, also, what do you expect? The hearing of impeachment of Governor Kawira Mwangaza enters day 2 today, and the Meru governor will get a chance to defend herself as the Senate members also vote on the same. Remember, that is an exercise that went on all the way to midnight yesterday, and her fate is likely to be known today. Also today, we expect the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning to hold a meeting with the Commissioner General of Kenya Revenue Authority, that is KRA, regarding the implementation of customs on passengers arriving into the country. That is part of what formed the big debate last week. Also, another event happening today is the launch of Gitu Kahengeri memoir, as well as the launch of the Mau Mau Freedom Fighters Foundation, as well as the launch of the Mau Mau Freedom Fighters website. And that event will be presided over by the Azimio leader Raila Odinga, as well as National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula. And it is to happen today at around 9 a.m. Also, we do expect, well, today is the National Cappuccino Day, and this day originated from Italy. Yeah. Cheers to the coffee that you are taking this morning, guys. Yeah. It's a day that people from all over...
Sips cappuccino.
Oh, happy Cappuccino Day. Where people from all over can order frothy and whipped coffee, cup of coffee to enjoy on its own, or eat whatever meal that you can. So if you are a cappuccino enthusiast, this is your day to take as many cups as possible. Yes, and today in history, a very significant day for the United States of America. That is this day, on this day in 2016, it is when the Republican candidate Donald Trump was elected as the 45th president of the United States through his Democratic opponent Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by more than 2.8 million votes. And yes, that is what we have on our diary this morning. Of course, we keep on updating you as we move on with the show, and also a reminder that this is the Diabetes Awareness Month. Yes, let's have a look.
Let's go straight to the dailies now, and we'll start off with the Standard this morning. Gloomy state of the nation. And this is the big headline on the front page. Tough times as the president faces a nation drained by the high cost of living in his annual State of the Nation address tomorrow. Kenyans expect that even as he highlights achievements of his 14-month-old administration, he will list concrete steps to make their lives better. And that story is extensively covered on pages 2 and 3. Some highlights there on the cost of living. Rising costs spoke Kenyans to a point of despair, even as they hope that the Bomas talks will craft new measures to ease the economic suffering. On agriculture, the president has constantly praised the fertilizer subsidy. Elsewhere on justice matters, the president and allies accused his predecessor of weaponizing the criminal justice system. In parliament, the president has established a dominance. Corporate health companies have been hit by a difficult operating environment of laying off employees. On fuel, of course, oil prices have hit record highs, ushering a cost of living crisis. And on taxes, Kenya's purchasing power has been eroded significantly by an unforgiving tax regime. That's a big story on the front page of the Standard this morning, even as a shilling retails at 151.26 to the US dollar. And the highlights on the front page of the Standard: US-based man fights with wife over child. The story is on page 8. Being a Wednesday, they have the enterprise pullout. Other stories: why school heads want extra cash. Elsewhere, fights and theft rule Kenya's crime world. On the top strip, the case against Kawira Mwangaza to impeach or not, and that is one of the biggest stories today as the Senate looks forward to vote on that impeachment, and the governor is put on her defense. In business, a Ruto advisor, Ndi, takes on industry. That's on the business pages, page 17 of the Standard. On the international scene, big fight for 684 million shilling rare mask. And in sports, Arsenal seek to fire back. That's the story on the back page. Arsenal seek to fire back as they host Sevilla. Gunners will be without their top scorer in the Champions League as they tackle Sevilla. Onana says his penalty save has given his team confidence ahead of today's match. Yeah. story. Na nilijua Stanley lazima awe na shinikizo la kucomment kwa hii.
Actually, my comment would be the front page of the Standard yesterday was all negative stories. I'm trying to compare yesterday's front page and today's. Well, there isn't really much difference because a huge percentage, and actually like all the stories here, well, a big percentage are negative stories. Apart
from the Arsenal story.
Yeah.
They're looking to fight back, which is something positive.
Something
and that's the Standard this morning.
To, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a look at the Daily Nation this morning. The top headline there, Kenya Kwanza MPs plead to root on fuel. And there's growing hostilities, and some Kenya Kwanza MPs yesterday pleaded with President Ruto to reintroduce the fuel subsidy program, lamenting that their constituents are increasingly becoming hostile to them because of the high pump prices as well as additional taxes. And a section of ruling party legislators were also said to have spoken out against the planned deployment of Kenya's police officers on a UN peace mission in Haiti. And that is a story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation, of course coming after that parliamentary group meeting at the State House, Nairobi yesterday, presided over by the President. And President's Site Stabilization Fund tells lawmakers they need to be popular at the right time. Seems like it was quite a heated meeting, that one in the morning. And on the top strip of the Daily Nation this morning, CBC system still needs some adjustments, say primary school heads, as a one of crisis. And that is a story on page 12 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's have a look at what we have on the right strip of the Daily Nation. Is there light at the end of the tunnel for Mwangaza? And Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza will today know her fate as senators vote to either uphold her impeachment or dismiss the charges. She will, however, be given a chance to plead her case before the Senate. Yesterday, Meru MCAs put up a spirited legal battle to convince the lawmakers that they were right to impeach Kawira Mwangaza. And that is the story on page 6 of the Daily Nation today. And of course, you can follow all those live proceedings right here on TV 47. And tough times force retirees back to work. And on page 10 highlights how the high cost of living in the country has eroded the ability of many Kenyans to save money or make any meaningful investments. This has left many retirees staring at poverty at the end of the employment. Hence, also means that elderly people will continue to work in order to afford their basic needs. This also calls into question the adequacy of pension scheme payouts in the country. Yes, and that is the story on page 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. Samatta's football there. What's gone wrong for Eric Ten Hag at mighty Man United? And Manchester United are in desperate need of a win at FC Copenhagen in the Champions League today as they battle to avoid an embarrassing group stage exit. Yes, and that is the story on page 35 of the Daily Nation this morning. Stanley, I'm not putting any more emphasis on it. I see you're staring at me.
I was waiting for it because, I mean, Saturday I was a very happy man, seeing Arsenal being punished and Man United win. So, as far as I'm concerned, we are very great.
All the best. We are here for the headlines tomorrow. And on the parenting pull-out this morning, parenting while grieving. Here is how I did it. That is the story that's covered on the parenting pull-out this morning. Let's have a look at what we have on the back page of the Daily Nation. State admits funding free education a difficult task. The budget deficits and failure to raise fees leave schools struggling to stay afloat. And in numbers, 15,476 shillings, the projected capitation per learner in secondary schools next year. Yes, and that is what we have on the Daily Nation this morning.
Tuongeze gazeti la Taifa Leo, taarifa sawia na gazeti la Daily Nation, masuala ya wastaafu. Taarifa kuu pale ni uchumi, wastaafu warudi soko. Dokeza pia maelfu ya wafanyakazi yaliyokuwa mabaraza ya miji na serikali za kaunti waliostaafu wamelazimika kurudi kazini kuepuka umaskini baada ya kaunti 44 kukosa kuwasilisha malipo yao ya uzee. Habari kuu ni katika ukurasa wa pili. Masuala ya kushangaza haya na Taifa Leo yadokeza hali ngumu ya kiuchumi nchini yasukuma wazee waliostaafu kung'ang'ana kutafuta kazi kujikimu kimaisha. Wamedokeza asilimia 82. Ripoti ya shirika la taifa takwimu au kipenda KNBS inaonyesha kuwa watu 7,760,159 kati ya 869,338 walio na umri wa zaidi ya miaka 60 walikuwa wakifanya kazi kufikia Disemba mwaka jana, ikiwa ni asilimia 82.1 ya idadi ya wazee wote nchini. Vidokezo vingine pale upande wa kushoto, hasara mvua ikiendelea kuponda nchi, maelfu yametoroka makwao, barabara kuharibiwa na huduma za stima kutatizwa. Pale chini, masuala ya elimu, idadi ya masomo GSS kupungua kuanzia Januari ijayo, wanafunzi wa gredi ya 7 kufunzwa masomo 9 badala ya 14. Tuende pale juu, masuala yaliyokuwa yakiendelea pale Seneti pale jana na yanayotakiwa kuendelea pia leo. Taifa Leo yauliza, Mwangaza ataponea au atazama wakati huu? Gavana wa kaunti ya Meru Kawira Mwangaza atajua hatima yake hii leo baada ya jopo kazi maalum la Seneti linalosikiza malalamishi dhidi yake kupiga kura ya kumdumisha au kumfurusha enzini katika ukurasa wa 16. Na hizo ndizo habari katika gazeti la Taifa Leo. Shilingi 30 tu. Taslimu shilingi za Kenya hizo.
Okay. Let's take a look at the People Daily. Similar headline, Ruto MPs cry out over high prices. That's a big story there. Reality check, Kenya Kwanza leaders confront president over biting economic times, saying the matter is fomenting hostility among their supporters. But head of state maintains there is no reason to panic. That's a big story. Other highlights on the front page, Kawira on the cross for second round. Elsewhere, court grants father custody of an infant. And on the top strip, Kenyans devise new survival tactics. Sagging under the heavy burden of taxes, shops reject M-Pesa payments, families abandon cars for public transport, matatu drivers carry more passengers to compensate, punishing cost of fuel, while wage earners opt to walk to work in what has now become the new normal. And that's the front page of the People Daily.
Let's have a look at the Star this morning. I'm wondering if you're also part of the working chama.
Walking is actually good.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yes.
We should do more of that.
Yeah, let's keep healthy.
And a bit of running.
Well, hapo kwa running
is where you draw the line.
is where you draw the line. The top headline on the Star this morning, UDA MPs confront Ruto over cost of living. And the legislators warn cost of living is making Kenya Kwanza unpopular with Kenyans. And as the Daily Nation puts it, the president seemed to have told them that the ideas will become popular at the right time. Yes, and in pictures there, Mwangaza must go as governor dismantles evidence. That is pictures of Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza there yesterday while appearing before the Senate. And today she will be defending herself, even as senators vote to either impeach her or, yes, and other stories making headlines on the Star this morning on the right strip. Love born in Kenya, birth vicious custody fight in US. Away from that, matters climate and planting of trees. We need to plant 1.5 billion trees yearly to hit target, says the Cabinet Secretary for Environment. So Ipan Tuya there, and remember Monday, the November 13th, is the It's a national holiday actually to plant trees, right?
Yes, to grow trees.
To grow trees, yes. That was the biggest correction, actually. There's a difference between planting trees and growing trees.
I'm just borrowing from the wording
Yes.
of the Gazette notice.
Oh, yes.
National tree growing
Tree growing and not tea planting.
holiday.
How about where we have no trees?
I think because most of what we are doing, we are taking already grown seedlings and just regrowing them elsewhere. Yeah, I guess planting is for seeds.
Oh, yes.
It's an interesting, this government will always peleka you corners. And then another story, the Star, a city man who killed wife, he caught in landlord's bed, freed. Yes, and on the very top strip of the Star this morning, Curriculum Institute cuts down JSS subjects from 14 to 9. And that is the story on page 9 of the Star this morning. And yes, those are some of the stories on the front page of the Star.
And even as the front page focuses on Marty's cost of living, this morning we're asking the viewer, do you think the government is doing enough to caution Kenyans from the high fuel prices? Do you think the government is doing enough to caution Kenyans from the high fuel prices? Marty's cost of living is really reflecting on various front pages here. And even as a crossing to Business Daily, still more of the high cost of living. The big story is state reveals plan to increase land fees by up to, get this, 100 times. So plan part of a World Bank-backed revenue expansion push. Incorporation of a trust to cost 50,000 Kenyan shillings from 500 Kenyan shillings. Wow, that is on Marty's property there. And they give you the old versus new service fees. And you can take a look at that story there. That is on page 2. On the right side there, that ticker, farms freeze expansion plans on economic woes. And that is on Matters Economy. In Matters Africa, Airtel Africa sticks to $825 million fresh capital plan despite loss. Matters Markets, Swiss Bell Hotel to manage Amori Nairobi Safari Club. And on the bottom there, Matters Trade, Kenya wins bid to lead Africa's push to cut dollar dominance. And finally, on the top strip, the Life magazine, it's a pull-out magazine, and they're saying why workers may never be satisfied with their salaries. Oh yes, that is the front page of Business Daily.
Let's cross the border now to Uganda. And on the Daily Monitor today, the big headline, Western Central take top government jobs. Recommendation there, a report recommends that the government develops a policy that guides the recruitment process with the end goal of employing people based on regional balance, population, academic qualification, among other parameters. And that's the big story in Kampala this morning. The other highlights on the front page of the Daily Monitor are not really worth a mention, so we can move to Tanzania.
Namna tuangazie gazeti la Mwananchi. Habari kuu pale, hali mbaya usafiri wa treni Dar LATRA yatoa onyo. Na habari nyingine katika gazeti la Mwananchi, wabunge waja na mbinu mpya ya kuzuia upigaji fedha za umma. Na habari nyingine pale, DED gunga vigogo 8 kizimbani. Na tukiangazia habari nyingine kuu katika gazeti la Mwananchi pale, Shivji Woga aliua uhuru wa wasomi na afichua hofu ya kufuatiliwa ilivyotanda UDCM mihadhara kufanyika kwa vibali. Ataka wasomi kukosoa serikali bila hofu kwa maendeleo. Zito azungumzia faida majukwaa ya wasomi nchini. Na habari nyingine pale ya masuala ya afya katika gazeti la Mwananchi, sababu kasi ya kuzaliana kupungua. Na hizo ndizo habari kuu katika gazeti la Mwananchi kule Tanzania asubuhi ya leo.
And still in Tanzania, strong dollar curtails foreigners' role at DSE. That is a big story. Talking about 26.8%. The foreign investors' participation declined significantly in the first 9 months of 2023. accounting for only 26.8% of the total turnover, equivalent to 21.38 billion Tanzanian shillings. And they talk about matters currency risks and global measures to mitigate inflation have had an adverse impact on trading at the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange after the participation of foreign investors at the bourse declined by 66.9% the first 9 months of this year compared to the corresponding period in 2022. And the final bit there, the bottom strip, high airfares are barrier to tourism in Africa. The cost of air travel in Africa has been described as a barrier to tourism on the continent, where fares are among the highest in the world. And well, they're just about to get even higher, possibly, as the festive season comes in and is around the corner. Let's cross over to the caricatures this morning. You can flip with us with your papers on page 12 of the Standard, page 17 of Daily Nation, and page 10 of People Daily. Page 12 quite looks interesting, Fred.
Yes, matters El Nino and the continuing high rainfall and flooding. Now someone's sitting on the rooftop there of the Met Department building saying we wish to warn everybody that El Nino is coming. Well, it's already here and people are drowning and vehicles have been submerged. But then again, I believe the weatherman issued this warning early enough.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And said, because even the government had already set aside some funds.
Yes.
It's only that the president later came and said that there appears to be a revision of the forecast.
And watered down.
Seen a sign somewhere.
Yes, but I don't see why we are blaming the weatherman. He had said a long time ago that, yes, El Nino is coming, be ready.
Yes.
And we even had conversations
yes.
In the studios, and they categorically said this is going to
Today I disagree with this cartoon. Let's not blame the weatherman. We had been warned by the meteorological department.
Absolutely.
Way before the rains came.
Because even after that statement by the president, they still maintain that there will be heavy rains that will be experienced to the extent of El Nino. Now we are seeing them, and we want to blame them. This is on us.
Right. Page 17 of Daily Nation.
On page, you had to. On page 17 of the Daily Nation, embattled Meru Governor Kawera Mwangaza there. There's the famous guitar. It's a balancing act of who's a man on.
Could probably a caricature that looks
probably
Senate,
the Speaker of the Senate.
Speaker of the
Oh
Senate.
yes, a caricature that looks like the Speaker of the Senate, Emerson Kingi there. There's a whole issue of whether is it to save Meru County or to save the governor, and that is what we will know that by the end of today. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting time. The second impeachment motion in less than a year.
Oh yes.
Yeah, every time close to December, Kawera always finds herself in the Senate, but msema kweli will be today. Let's see.
And on page 10 of People Daily, Stano also goes with the whole theme of what is happening in Meru County. And there's well, it's a vehicle being leveled up. The vehicle is titled Meru County, the whole number plate. And there's a common Mwananchi saying politics and development don't mix. So that gravel there is matters impeachment. They're really probably trying to raise Meru County, just see what is really the problem with Meru County. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
And that wraps it up for our look at the daily newspapers today. Of course, we'll be back to discuss the main headlines. But remember our question this morning. Do you think the government is doing enough to cushion Kenyans from the high fuel prices? Do you think this government is doing enough to cushion Kenyans from the high fuel prices? You can continue interacting with us on our social media pages, TV47 News, at TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. Now, after the break, State of the Nation. We'll look at the big headlines this morning, and we'll be having Professor Fred Ogola, governance expert, and Philip Chebunet, political communication expert. Also, Dr. Isaac Hassan, leadership and governance expert, will be joining us on the panel. Stand by for that conversation. You're watching Morning Cafe. TV 47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. We now want to get down to business and discuss the big headlines today on State of the Nation. This morning, we're privileged to have in studio Professor Fred Ogolla, governance expert. Good to have you in studio. Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Fred.
Next to Professor, we have Philip Zeal Chebunet, political communication expert. Good to have you in studio.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Isa Hassan will be joining us as well as we move on. Quite some big headlines today, of course, the ongoing impeachment trial of Governor Kawira Mwangaza of Meru before the Senate, as well as what the Kenya Kwanza MPs told the president yesterday during that parliamentary group meeting at State House. But because these are some of the biggest conversation, before we get to that, there's a very interesting headline on the front page of the Daily Nation, a highlight down there, and also captured on the front page of Taifa Leo. Tough times force retirees back to work. And according to the Taifa Leo, it says uchumi wastaafu warudi soko, hali ngumu ya kiuchumi nchini ya sukuma wazee waliostaafu kung'ang'ana kutafuta kazi kujikimu kimaisha. And they seem to lay the blame also on some of the counties for failing to remit their retirement benefits. Let's start from there, because even as a country, what exactly are we doing to our society when we force people who should be in their sunset years, in their retirement age, in their 70s, to force them to get back to the workforce? This could have a ripple effect even elsewhere, Professor.
Yeah, by the way, thank you very much, Fred, and thank you, TV47, for this very important topic. I've done research about aging and retiring with dignity. And there's not just that, Fred. The old elderly people in Kenya suffer much more than just the issue of cost of living. Do you know that they become parents when they should be grandparents? Mm-hmm. Because look at what happens, for example. Some people lose their children who have children, and now they become parents when they should be grandparents. So even if you look at the issue of pension that they get, even if you look at the NOAA cash transfer that is run by the government, it can't work. So even I've been proposing to the government to have a formula on you have to look at who are the dependencies for these people. If somebody has one dependency, just 2,000 shillings a month might not work. Maybe you need to add a factor. Because imagine, Fred, when you retire, you are supposed to be a grandfather who is only laughing and celebrating with the grandchildren, but not being a financial or the education and the rest. So the situation is worse. Mm-hmm. And there's a need for us to look for what is called, they call a replacement ratio. For example, Fred, if you, I don't know how much you earn, but let me just say that someone earns 200,000 shillings a month. When you retire, can your pension be amount to 200,000 a month? If you start getting your pension 50,000 shillings a month, do you know how to downgrade properly? Stop driving, begin walking. Some people think they're going to the village will lower their cost. It cannot. Village is expensive. Whenever I want to go to my village, I must do what's called advanced team. Some people have to clean the cobwebs, check whether water is flowing. And then villagers know that their son is back home, and there is entitlement that you have to really give them a good meal, have a good conversation with them. You know, I'm saying that it's just quite expensive for elderly, and aging in Kenya is not dignified, and I think that there's a need for us to find a way to cushion. In South-developing countries, if you are elderly or if you have more children, you are given a card that if you are accessing transport, it becomes cheaper for you. Mm-hmm. If you're buying food, there's a way you get subsidies just by showing that card in the supermarket. When I was doing my PhD in Spain, I saw this, and that's why, let me not talk about problems now, Fred, because at Linda Jamii, we decided to move towards problems.
Yes.
In this book, which is called Solomonic Economics, we have suggested that Kenya needs to move towards...
You've authored that yourself?
Yes, I've authored it. It has a solution for the elderly people. Mm-hmm. We need to move towards a welfare state. Okay. People think welfare state is socialism. It's not. Mm-hmm. Germany is a welfare state. Norway is a welfare state. If you go to most of the countries where people are happiest, we are seeing that capitalist states, we have very rich people and very poor people. Mm-hmm. And being very poor in a place where some people are, being very rich, where some people are very poor, can't be. Even, Fred, if you're a billionaire, And wherever you walk, you are seeing people are suffering, people are begging you for money because they have no income, you can't be happy. But if you go to Germany, the income are almost equivalent, if you like, equalize a little bit, and therefore everybody around is happy, and I think for me this is a solution that will help the elderly people.
Philip, but what kind of effect will it have if we force this population of the elderly back into the job market? Because already Kenyan youth are complaining about high unemployment. Now you're forcing very experienced people who have already left the job market, but because of the prevailing cost of living, they're forced back into the fray.
Thank you so much, Ndimuli, for having me this morning. If you check the age, the retirement age in Kenya, and you see most of those people who are retiring, some are very young. You remember when the retirement age was 55, and at 55, these people are still very useful. So if in other countries, like for example Australia, you will find these old people, retirees, doing even traffic. So they are in uniform. So you find that this preparation is required. Most of them who become miserable after retiring, people like me who are still young, we don't prepare enough for retirement. So you find them, most of them become idle, and that transition is not there. I think there should be a program where after retirement, these people are transitioned into the village and into their normal life, so that they don't, it's not just an abrupt retirement. So the other thing is that the government has really made plans. You remember the other day in Kericho, they were launching the health insurance. So these people are covered. I was glad the other day when I was taking my mother to go and register for the elderly program, so that they'll be getting some stipend every month. And I took the whole day because I knew that this has really come to help.
The question is, and I think Professor mentioned it, is it enough what we're doing? Because our system does not seem to cater fully for this particular section of the population. Allow me to welcome Dr. Harun Isak Hassan to the panel, leadership and governance expert.
Thank you. Thank you, Ndemana.
Now, to you, probably, because we do expect that this attrition from the working force, the productive sector of the population to retirement is a natural balancing of society. When we talk about the high cost of living and what this has done to the current population, we rarely discuss what it has done to the elderly. We talk about those who have pay slips and how much taxation they have to pay, how much their buying power has been affected. But we rarely talk about the elderly. Now we're seeing them coming back into the fray because they have to survive one way or another.
Thank you very much. I think my colleagues have articulated very well in terms of the basic needs for an elderly person. However, in the life of human nature, I mean, we progress in 3 layers. One, there's a time when we grow. There's a time when we are productive in life. And there's a time when we fall, we retire from being active in the society as productivity, in the matter of productivity. There are 3 things that always come up when we talk about senior citizens. One, in terms of their employer, they have developed what is called a comfort zone during their active time of work. When they get closer to their retirement, they have not been prepared, or there are no proper exit strategies which have been put in place for them to face the reality of their retirement. Because it's mandatory for every person at a certain age actively retiring from active work. Secondly, institutions that employ them, particularly the government, do not consider anything in terms of the well-being of this particular person after exiting the work. Much of these senior citizens end up in depression after their work when they had a comfort during their active time of their life within their employment. However, there are a number of measures that needs to be put in place. For example, when you are exiting certain institution, you are supposed to be having what is called retirement exit preparation, where you are being given opportunity to go and have some experience within the society where you want to retire to while you are still at work. Therefore, you are given around 6 months or 3 months to go and visit there, come back. Your leave period is expanded and is blotted. You are asked to go and attend to psychologists or people who are able to prepare you mentally for that particular aspect. Then you are supposed to be given a good package in terms of what is called gratuity. A gratuity is the one which makes basis for the particular person whenever he goes out of the working zone into the new environment, because a lump sum amount of money, it kickstarts the process of blending with the society where you are retiring to. If that does not exist, it doesn't exist, then there is that backlash where the person feels like he has been very productive, all of a sudden he has been left out. Yes.
And Prof, a lot has been said about some of the interventions that the Kenya Kwanza administration has come up with. And you talked about the welfare state. Kenya Kwanza could actually use this as a justification to justify some of its policies. The case in point, the new health insurance system that caters for this demographic. Other issues like Pesa ya Wazee, not necessarily just with Kenya Kwanza, even with Jubilee. Some of these things have come under criticism. But when we see that retirees are returning back to productive life, then it should be a justification for the Kenya Kwanza that they're actually doing the right thing.
Yeah, by the way, Fred, I had been in high criticism of Kenya Kwanza for a while. And my brother here told me that I've been lost for long. I was doing a lot of study about what is happening. And truth be said, Kenyans don't want to be reminded of some things. Like you see, my brother, if you made a mistake and your mother continue reminding you that, Fred, you made a mistake for 1 year. We've told Kenyans for 1 year about that. Some were saying that we elected our own government. Some have been saying elections were stolen. We cannot talk about the 1 year. Now, we have to be very solutions-oriented, because let me tell you what, my brother. The president must succeed, and today, not tomorrow. Because some people who are waiting for him to fail are cynical and hypocritical. Because if he fails tomorrow, if you become president tomorrow, after the president has failed, you'll find a serious problem in the country. So we must give the president advice. And that's what the approach we are taking, Alinda Jamii, to offer solutions. That's why this book we're going to publish and recommended the issue way forward. So just maybe go right there, what you asked the question. Welfare state has been one of the most fundamental states, because when there's welfare state, there's more peace in the country. There's something in economics called Gini coefficient. Gini coefficient is a measure of the inequality level in a country. When there's high inequality in a country, even investors fear putting money because there can be a political upheaval. There's no stability. So there are always measures used even by investors to bring money. So we want to ask the president that if there's anything that can really bring a bit of equality, because what are the figures in this book I put? 2% of Kenyans control 98% of Kenyan revenue, meaning that businesses that are churning money, 98% of them is in the hands of 2% of Kenyans. Leaving 98% of Kenyans fighting for 2% of the revenue. I remember the president had talked about the issue of state capture, economic capture. He made these statements. He tried to do something, but he remembered that the upheavals were too much on him. And now when I do a reflection, I sympathize that maybe there's something the president is trying to say, but maybe we're not listening. And also remember what Uhuru Kenyatta said earlier when they were with the president in the same government. He said, we want every child to have a laptop. What we misunderstood was that what was the intention? The president was trying to say we need to digitize education. Had we listened to not the noise, but the signal that we need to digitize education, we could have actually managed the COVID-19 better, because the issue was not laptop. They were talking about digitizing education. Because they say, if teachers don't have laptops, why are you giving kids laptops? I think Kenya sometimes become a little bit pessimistic and overcritical. And we cannot have that every time you wake up on Twitter, bad government, that's bad. So if you ask me, there's a need. And I go to the issue of capacity building, which you mentioned. I've been working with a lot of people in the pension scheme. In fact, I've been championing a lot of education before retirement. And I met an old man who has retired and he's 71 years old. With his pension money, he told me, Professor, I have a truck, I want to convert this truck into a matatu so that I can have a matatu business to make me money. Asking my brother, at 72 years old, if you receive a call from a matatu driver asking you that your car has been hounded by a policeman or the tires are wrong, will you wake up at midnight to find a way to deal with the police? Because there are some businesses you can only do when you are young. And we find that that is not a solution. And my other point is, people have tried research by saying if you lower the age of retirement so that young people can, because I asked that question just before you talked to him, that young people will be competing with older people. Many countries have tried to lower the retirement age so that they can give youth a chance, but it has never worked. Okay. In fact, it has a lot of cost to the government when people retire too early and you don't know exactly what they retire into doing. And it's a very difficult thing. And in fact, there's a very outrageous proposal by an American company called Phil Morris, which is a cigarette company. They proposed to American economy that let the older people start smoking so that they can die early to salvage. I can tell you people have come with very outrageous things, but the elderly issue can be sorted under a welfare state.
But we tend to look at it more from the economic perspective, probably than an even social perspective. Our culture appears to have been changing, to have changed quite a lot. And they say that a parent who took care of 10 children single-handedly and managed to do so, these 10 children are now unable to take care of this one parent. That speaks to the nature of the society. It's not even about the economy. It's a cultural or social issue.
Indimuli, I think one of the things that you need to know is that right now, even to raise one child is not easy. This PP1, PP2, it's very expensive. If you check the fees, somebody can even pay 31,000 or even 50,000 per term. So that issue of following the scripture and saying, the scripture said, be fruitful and multiply. I think Kenyans should now know that they are not the only ones who are told. I think in Dimuli, everyone was told to contribute.
What about taking care of our own parents, the vice versa?
But you see, what's really happening is that you remember that High Court ruling the other day, that if you don't take care of your parents and the elderly, you are liable to prosecution. And I think no one has appealed. So the other thing is that the pension schemes, I work in the University of Eldoret, and if you check some of the universities and some of the institutions here, like I was checking Mombasa County, for example, they have not remitted over 44 billion of the pension funds. I don't know how these companies and these institutions expect us to survive. Because if they don't remit, if you keep on paying someone the monthly salary and you don't remit the pension, I think it's high time the president should rein in on these institutions, because really they are preparing you for poverty. Because at the time that you retire, you find even most of the people who have retired, you see in the village, they are talking along the road. They are talking to themselves, a monologue, because they cannot afford the basic needs. So I think it's high time institutions should remit our pension. Okay. They should remit the pension of those who have retired, so that at least you have a place to land. Right now, you find that you cannot save anything. The kind of taxes that are there, the kind of prices that are there, even for basic commodities. Even such a headline like yesterday's headline that fuel will reach 300 shillings per litre. If you are not prepared enough, you are going to lock your car in your store, because you are not prepared for the future. So it's high time.
Yes, even beyond the pension, because pension has been touted as probably the biggest solution to retirement. But the truth of the matter is, it is never enough. We probably require a rethinking of retirement and the social welfare. It is beyond the economy. It is beyond issues to do with pensions and the health insurance fund. There needs to be a cultural shift in how we deal with the elderly in our society. Are we doing that?
It is true that there's a cultural shift. Generally, when you look at what is happening, we are a bit being influenced by the Western society. In Africa, we used to rely on our children for them to take care of us when we grow old. In Western society, elderly people are transferred to home cares and different setup. When you go to these societies where elderly people are being taken care by people who are in different setups, it causes crisis within the setup of African mindset. We know very well we were brought up so that at the end of the day, when our parents grow old, we have that social responsibility to take care of them. That disconnect is slowly coming in also our setup. And therefore, we are shifting into the modern way of taking care of our elderly people. And that's why I see a number of people establishing home cares in Nairobi. It's not in other places so far, but in Nairobi. When you look at keenly what happens to a person who is very old, he goes through several stages of blending into the society. One is the first shock that he has no continuity in monthly pay that he used to get. Secondly, he has no other savings that he has put in place. Thirdly, he will not be accepted by the society for being having no property or resources that he can use to influence the people he has found in where he's retiring to come and accept him in that society. Some of them end up in an isolation. I see quite a number of patients. I'm a mental health expert, and I see quite a number of elderly people who have retired. And often when you look at them, you will find the main issue is all about their upkeep.
You
put
may
aside
have property, but you don't have the cash flow.
Exactly, you don't have completely, and you can't liquidate your property. And most of them, their children will pressurize them to sell the property they had. And once you liquidated a property that you earlier on relied on purposely for your investment, then it will be utilized by the rest of the active member of your family, and you will be left out with a small portion. And eventually it dries up, and the children will move away from you into cities. Some of them will engage you so that they get employment, they look for money to look for employment, or they want to enhance their education, and therefore they want to steal money. That is one point that is pressing them. The other point, I think Prof has mentioned, is that an age that we are not supposed to be engaging ourselves actively in child bearing is when we start. Particularly our Somali society. Let me give you a very clear things. When an old man retires, he wants to go and retire with a young girl. Says, this is the one who is going to take care of me. He's looking at the woman he's marrying as a source of care for him, but he's not looking at the children he is going to get, that will be his responsibility to bring them up.
In retirement?
In retirement.
Wow.
That is one. The other thing, I think, which is having a big challenge with us in the issue of retirement, I think beyond the person who is retiring, is the government way of doing things. We see a whole government blaming county government, which is subordinate to the national government, which has the responsibility, overall responsibility, to make sure that every Kenyan's pension, their money, their own money that they have contributed, has been submitted to the right place.
Okay.
And therefore, corruption is one of the things that is killing the whole process. Secondly, we did not set the procedures or welfare process for the elderly people. When you go to Western countries, as Prof has mentioned, recently I was in UK, you go to a supermarket, people will ask for you for your retirement card. Do you have a retirement card? You get 50% off.
Okay.
2, you go to a parking, you just put your card there as a retiree, and you don't pay for that parking.
Okay.
Secondly, you go to medical facilities and you are given free services.
And we need to go on a break right now, so unfortunately, sorry for interrupting you there. It's 7 o'clock. Time now for a break. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion, a very good discussion about wastaafu warudi sokoni. Tough time for retirees going back to work, and we'll be moving on with this conversation with my panelists here. You're watching Morning Cafe. Back, you're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli, and still in studio with Professor Fred Ogola, governance expert, Philip Chebunet, political communications expert, and Dr. Harun Isak Hassan, leadership and governance expert. Just before the break, we were talking about the issue of retirees getting back to work, but I now want us to move on to the other bigger headline today, and that has to do with that Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group meeting that took place at State House, Nairobi yesterday, and for the very first time, we saw the legislators who've been accused of being muted by the executive, or been accused of not having independence from the executive, actually standing up and pointing out to the president that things are not good on the ground. And it is what is featuring on the front page of the Daily Nation. Kenya Kwanza MPs plea to Ruto on fuel. Standard did not have that, but I think we had that on the Star. Yes, UDA MPs confront Ruto over cost of living, and we have that on the People Daily as well. Ruto MPs cry out over high prices. For the very first time, we're seeing MPs now feeling the heat, and they've seen that they can no longer keep quiet on this, and they're taking this to the doorstep of the president. What is your assessment of this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Fred. First of all, what was happening in State House with the MPs is not the main thing. But what happened in Dagoretti was actually the main thing to talk about, because I saw Ndindi Nyoro was there, and the president was there, and people were showing serious discontent. Discontent was also shown in Mombasa when he was trying to talk to them, but you could hear people talking about mafuta, fuel. And also Kenyans in social media are having different names now. I see somebody called Sugar Boy, somebody's called Mafuta Boy, somebody called Oil Boy. This is all sending a message that there is something that needs to be done. And I'm sure the president has to consider, because the issue was telling us we're going to import oil from Saudi Arabia directly with Kenya shillings. That was completely not correct, and it cannot work, because what does Saudis have to do with Kenya shillings? What do they need it for? So I'm sure that the main thing here is subsidy. And people have been talking about, again, subsidies. Subsidies actually are very critical in an economy. If you go to Europe, they are subsidizing energy, they are subsidizing food, they are subsidizing things. And I'll tell you why, as an economist, subsidies help. Let's say, for example, Fred, that you spend 100,000 shillings a year in school fees. Now, if the government comes and tells you that they're going to pay for you that 100,000 shillings, where will you be taking 100,000 shillings? It's like giving a stimulus to the economy. So, because for you, you are a high-end person, let me talk about a very common person. A common person on average can spend on school fees around 50 to 60,000 a year. So 60,000 with around 21 million households If you multiply 50,000 times 20 million households, around 4 billion injected into the economy, which is a stimulus. So people buy clothes, they'll buy electronics, and as you tax that money comes back to Treasury, and Treasury can make more money. So that's why Kibaki said free primary education. When he did free primary education, those who are spending money on school fees were still earning that money. Mm-hmm. They were forced to spend on areas where he was going to be taxed, and that's how the government makes money. And I actually tell people, as an economist, any money in the hands of a citizen is government's money. Mm-hmm. If I give you 10,000 shillings now, Fred, I'll call you in the day and ask you, Fred, how much money are you still having? I'm sure you'll buy for somebody lunch, isn't it? I'm sure you'll fuel your car, and that money will come back immediately. So giving money to citizens actually is not losing money, because the money is circulating within the economy. The money will come back to you. So if you ask me, there's a need for these people to address this issue using a subsidy, because Kenya isn't want to trade with the US. Remember now, even the Western partners that were actually trying to support this economy, they are finding that they wanted Kenya to have what you call buying power, purchasing power. They're supposed to have what you call disposable income. And when you take a lot of taxes in the country and you put them on fuel and the rest, well, somebody is actually telling us that the fuel is going up almost to 300 shillings. This is regular. I think the members of parliament response is to three things. One, Mombasa incidents. Two, Dagoretti. And third, the talking by Chirichiri that it can actually go to 300. Mm-hmm. And look here, fuel is going down, global prices are going down. Tanzania has always been cheaper. Remember the tweet by Museveni, where he says that he has been getting fuel from Kenya and actually been there ripping him off. But even after they rip them off, Uganda are still having fuel cheaper, which means that the fuel issue, as an economist and very objective, is not a systemic problem. It's not an international issue or global issue only. It is, ours here is also internally inflicted because of the fiscal policy we have. And I think that as leader Jamii will try to advise the president on what is called fiscal policies that can kickstart the economy so that all of us can enjoy. Because why are members of parliament bothered? Who travel most in this country is member of parliament. So he goes, yes. So he goes to a fuel station and he fuels. And sometimes he has to go with the friends. When he reach home, he wants to send people to do errands in his region. He's being told, Mheshimiwa, ulikuwa natuma 20,000, sasa bwana weka kitu, ongezea kitu. So they feel the heat. And when I walk in Kenya, you talk to Mama Mboga, you talk to Boda Boda, you talk to a private person, people working inside government, you talk to NGOs, you talk to anybody, rich, poor, black, white, woman, man, youth, young. Everybody is talking about the money. Okay. And everybody is talking about the scarcity of it, not the abundance of it. They're talking about the scarcity of money and the buying power of the Kenya shillings.
Chabonet, Prof here talks about subsidies being probably one of the solutions because they cannot be the panacea. But the president yesterday is quoted as flatly saying that they cannot resort to subsidies, saying it is unsustainable. Do you think that some of these economic policies by Kenya Kwanza have been too rigid, and hence probably that's where the issue is?
In Dimuli, I think there is the fear factor, considering what really happened in the last regime and the kind of mess that we were in after elections. When the president came in, you remember the debt was going to even 9 trillion. And the president was trying to come up with ways of cushioning Kenyans. So if, like right now, I like what's happening here. If you check this headline, it means now everybody is coming in to bring in a solution, because most MPs have just been like a cheering squad. They have not been doing anything. So if you check the headline saying MPs turn the heat on Ruto, I think this is very good because everyone now is trying to come up with a solution. So we would like MPs to go beyond this turning the heat on the president, and when they go to parliament, they need to amend the laws. They need to cushion Kenyans. They don't need just to be coming and appearing in meetings and talking tough. Instead, they should go back.
Do you think probably the president is too rigid that he is not taking in any advice from people who he should be listening to. He works with the parliamentarians. They are the ones who pass these laws on his behalf. They ensure that his policies are passed, yet he's so rigid when it comes to suggestions from them.
I have worked with Ruto, and I did some work during the elections, and I would like to say that Ruto does not need people who cheer him. In fact, critics are the best friends of the president, because the president does not expect you to praise him. In fact, those who praise Ruto, you'll be in trouble. So the president needs solutions. He needs to be given solutions that are going to cushion Kenyans. So these MPs, they have a platform. You only see MPs during these impeachment proceedings. They are so active in the village, talking about, like in my region, in Rift Valley, there's something now they're discussing about the kingpins and whatever. I don't know which password and whichever. These are irrelevant talks. What they should do now, as the supplementary budget is now in Parliament, they need now to look at ways in which these taxes will come down. This pension that has not been remitted, that is making even retirees go back, they need to look into those laws.
Let's talk about Parliament and its conduct, Dr. Harun, because they've been accused of giving in to influence from the executive mostly, especially Kenya Kwanza. Issues have been raised about even holding parliamentary group meetings at State House. And they seem to be under direction from State House in each and every decision that they've made, that Kenya Kwanza MPs who form the majority in the Houses of Parliament have not even once gone against any proposal or policy that comes straight from the executive. So when they make a proposal to the president that he flatly says that one will not work, what else can they do?
It is good that they face the heat first, because when the new government came into place, Kenyans were so much excited about electing President Ruto, simply because there was the fight between the big giant and him who was a solo. And Kenyans were excited because any person can be a president regardless of whether you have government machineries or not. So the theory of saying that when the government machineries are on your side, you become a president in this country, that was abolished. And that was a very good thing. That's why Kenyans were excited. But when the Kenya Kwanza government started their missions, they started everything in a hurry. Some of the things that we are facing currently is because of lack of proper thoughts on decisions that they have made in the first year of their administration. What were some of the things that they made decisions in a hurry without giving an input, proper input into it, is the taxation law. And one of the things that is trying to kill people at the moment are the basis of things they made during the taxation law. As you mentioned, parliamentarians who are in support of Kenya Kwanza didn't look at the document. They never cared about the implication of that document towards their electorates. They just decided to favor the interest of the government of the day and passed the law without knowing that one day this will going to happen. And I know very well now it is biting them. It's not the president that is having a big issue in terms of governing. It's the people we send to parliament that are supposed to be the watchdog and having representation for the people they elected. And these are the people who are crying in every village we go. You will find people are suffering, the cost of living has increased, and people are every day missing even a single meal. Now that the fuel crisis have started again, as Prof mentioned, I mean, the fuel prices up there did not increase. But downstream here, I don't know what is increasing. We are not being told exactly. Hamas and Israel fight has no business. We have never had any business of fuel with Israel or Hamas. Our fuel has been coming from a different direction, and it is not the root. You know, when there is a root problem, like, for example, Ukraine, you can understand, because they have a global perspective of economic control. But Hamas and Israel have no role in increasing fuel supply, or rather cost of fuel that is coming to the main downstream towards Africa. That is always known because the route is always known. And now we were told that we are even getting it from Saudi. That means then the route is even completely different. Because, you know, Hamas and Israel, their route is through the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal is in Egypt. And the only time that you can use that place is when you are transporting things to Mediterranean, Mediterranean Sea, not when you are coming to Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean's route are very clear towards the Indian line. So I think the fact remains that parliamentarians have been a puppet for the government of the day. But now they are facing the reality, and they are trying to now see how best they can fix it. The president has mentioned something which has surprised me. The president, when one of the nominated MP mentioned that because of the tax increase in fuel is why we are having the crisis in fuel prices, he rejected that we did not increase the tax for fuel. I don't think if that is accurate, simply because we know very well there was 16% increase into the fuel. There were some other components, tax reduction were made, but those components where tax were reduced are influenced by productivity of fuel supplies. Yes. And therefore, if fuel has been increased, regardless of whether you have reduced the subsidies price for taxation for agricultural product, still transportation costs will come in. Yes. Still processing, which uses electricity, comes in. Electricity is the main factor, and electricity depends on fuel. And therefore, my final thought on the content, the way the parliamentarians behaved, which they cannot correct now, because they have to face the commoners, and they have started facing it, and that will going to affect the whole nation. It's not only here, is that they have to go back and do grassroots advocacy on what the blunders they did in the first phase of running the government, and now, or checking the government, and now they should tell Kenyans that we were sorry, and now we will take our roles as required, and we will going to move on with the way they can help the society.
Prof, don't you find this a bit hypocritical of the MPs? They know what they did in passing the Finance Act into law. Now they knew that by raising these queries at State House Nairobi, that they're the same people who actually leak this to the media. The media is not invited to State House for parliamentary group meetings. They knew that by appearing to tell the president of their concerns, that would make it to the headlines. And therefore, we would take it like Kenya Kwanza MPs are really concerned about the situation. Don't you think that is hypocritical of them?
I can tell you, Fred, I went to court against the Finance Act. And I went to Parliament and said the Parliament is a crime of sin. People have even seen on TikTok me saying that we would actually try to set up Parliament on fire, because that is the biggest problem we have. Because first of all the evil things that hurt Kenyans are passed in Parliament. Remember, Parliament vets every official that is elected or appointed. So the CS that we have now, even Chirichi's statements, Chirichi was vetted by Parliament. All the corrupt people that we are having in this country, whether they are working for Anti-Corruption Commission, they are working for DCI, Parliament vets nearly everybody. And for me, going to Parliament, then talk as if we are powerless, they have powers. They can impeach the president if the president does not listen to them. So I'm sure, Daktari, I'm not saying we should impeach the president, but I'm trying to say that if they really mean business, if Kenya Kwanza will put an impeachment motion before William Ruto in Parliament, it will pass, because Azimio will back them up. So if they mean business, and if they are serious enough, let them impeach the president. But I'm also asking the president, why do you wait to be impeached? Because we don't want such a thing to happen. We don't want to go to election mode. Thanks God, we have moved from the streets, Fred. We are now discussing in Bomas. Whatever comes from Bomas, which I think there's nothing much coming for Kenyans from Bomas, we have a ceasefire. No one is on the street. No one is throwing a stone. Let us walk towards peace. So we don't want to happen. The president should just listen. If the president knows that they have power, according to me, for me, I would even tell you that this is, for me, looks like a game between the president and Kenya Kwanza MPs. Because if the president is sure that MPs want this thing to go down and they are serious, the president cannot reject it on their face. The president can tell them, let me even investigate to delay it. Actually, you cannot just wake up from your chair after listening and saying, forget about it. It cannot be. So for me, the MPs are not serious. The president also is not very serious, because if they want to impeach him, they can do it. And then lastly, I can tell you, Fred, before we go into everything, a world-class country, a world-class nation does not become world-class just by coincidence. And world-class starts what you call objective reality. Fred, before you became a very good journalist, there's a day you sat down and discovered, I don't have this talent, I don't have that competence, and you work through it. For example, you are now good in research. You know, look at how you're engaging us here. So you went and did your research, and now you came when you're seasoned. So Kenyans need to operate from objective reality. What is the problem we're having? Okay. And how are we solving it? And I'm sure these things are telling us that you now want to pass these things. And the Kenya Kwanza government were praising this Finance Act, how it will raise revenue. And I told them it cannot. I gave them a memoranda how to collect 3.6 trillion without borrowing. Secondly, without increasing taxes. Okay. And they had all that papers. Then they refused to call me to now walk them through, because a paper written might be difficult to read. I understand that. And then lastly, remember that the members of parliament of Kenya Kwanza, most of them are UD officials. Who gave them the ticket is William Ruto. And I think that we need to start looking for a way on which we have to ensure that the master who gave you the ticket, when you become MP, you serve Kenyans. And what they are doing there, they're doing PR to their constituents, that they are fighting for cost of living because it's hot for them, but they're putting the president into fire by saying the president one who has refused. If there's an advisor from the presidency, they did tell William Ruto that these MPs are not his friends, and he needs to listen to Kenyans, not the MPs.
The quality of parliament we have, they go to State House and appear to be begging the president. Yet they passed. It was a proposal from the president. They passed it, rubber stamped it. Then they go to State House and appear to be begging the president. These are the same people who are supposed to be oversighting the executive. Don't you think that that is where the problem is? That we do not have a proper parliament, hence no one to check the executive, and when the president says yes or no, that's it.
I think this is a wake-up call on also the electorates. They need to start electing serious people. You remember in 2017, I tried to vie as an MP in my place, in Moiben constituency. And I really gave them a very good manifesto, and I did my best, but I was not elected. So you find the right people don't come to parliament. I think we have talked here about the parties that are there. But these MPs, if there's a Damascus moment, if they have now realized that they need to check on the government, they need to speak against the things that happen, I think this is very good. So these MPs, again, they have an opportunity. But most of the times you see what's happening in parliament, the seats are empty. These guys don't go to parliament. They don't come up with bills. If you check the people who come up with bills, you will see you are told the best MP is Ndindi Nyoro because of what he has done using the CDF. So we would like this competition from within. We would like people to be creative, people to come up with bills, people to speak.
Do you think they have that latitude of being creative and independent? They look to be looking for direction from the executive every single day.
In the university, we teach first years about research skills. And I think most of these MPs, they need to come to class so that we really teach them on ways to come up with, be creative, be innovative, have skills that are going to help the common man. So the common man just sees, in the village there, we just see prices, we just see food, we even don't care about their salary. In fact, most of these MPs, if you call them, they think you need money. And yet most of the people are working.
Can I just interrupt?
Most of the people are working.
Yes,
yes.
Let me tell you what, the problem we have in this country is not about competence. And when there's no leadership, competence can be used against a people. So the issue is not about competence. The issue is that we have glorified money over skills, knowledge, and competence. If I go to my village now, you're a professor, you went to the village, you ask people to vote you, they didn't look at your qualifications, they look at who gave them more money. When money is agenda number 1, leadership is agenda number 10. For me, it's not about competence, it's about leadership. Do they really want to do that thing? They are qualified people in parliament. Are they using their intelligence for the benefit of the nation, or they use their intelligence to get access to the state legacy and enjoy it? That's what I'm trying to say. They go to parliament to beg money in the name of development. How would you again...
I'm more concerned about the structure, because this structure, our governance structure is designed such that the 3 arms of government check each other. But when we see that one arm of government has already has overwhelming influence over the other arms of government, is it an indictment on our constitution, our structure or system of governance? Because it should not be that possible or easy for the executive to influence all the decision of the legislature, such that parliamentarians are going to State House to seek direction from the president.
The architecture of our governance is very clear. We have significant documentation and laws directing roles and responsibility of each arm of the government. That is not a problem. The problem is when the parliamentarians or the judiciary, I could bring it back into the discussion, or the executive, are in the gear of political campaign from day one of their assumption of office to until the next office. People are planning on how they're going to secure seats for 2027. That is why you see our parliamentarians have no directions. Secondly, as Professor puts it, the moneying of our society, the society looks at money. Those of us who have, I also contested for a seat in Mandera West last time, and we understand it very well. They are regretting why they could not elect me now. And they come to me and say, we did wrong things for not electing you, but I tell them that was your decision. Me, I'm back to my normal life and I'm doing my things again. I no longer need to come and talk about what you need to be given in terms of service provision, because now the leader is the one you have elected. He is also my leader because you have decided him over me. But the point is, Kenyans look at things from a different perspective. Everybody is planning to see, how can I join UDA? We had platforms for different political parties. Now everybody is looking for how to join and have influence in UDA. Others are trying to look at how best they're going to, So you see several members of parliament moving into State House. They are in a different vehicle at the moment. Representing Kenyans in a different vehicle that they have been elected for, but they go and give loyalty to the executive. And so when a parliamentarian gives out loyalty, means he has disconnected himself from his role and has become executive.
Yes.
And therefore, when you become executive, then your role is absolute. So we need to tell them one thing, that if they don't take their role well, then I think Kenyans must use the existing laws to make sure that they are either there to do their work and take their responsibility very well, or leave the office so that other Kenyans are given opportunity to oversee the executive's role.
And the president made a very curious remark yesterday. It's also captured on the front page of the Daily Nation on the top strip, just above the headline. The president cited the stabilization fund, but he told the lawmakers they need to be popular at the right time, meaning that there were concerns about their own popularity.
Yes.
That this issue could affect their own popularity. Don't you think those are very selfish reasons for MPs to go to State House to talk about?
Yeah, by the way, remember that the president was in Dagoretti, and I told you, and the MPs from that era tried to talk to the audience as a way to make them listen to the president. It was not easy. So you see, now he's concerned that these guys' popularity might be waning on the ground, and that's why even me, I'm suffering the same effect. Because remember, as a presidential candidate, President William Ruto's strategy always to use elected leaders because the non-elected leaders have the people. And that's, if you look at even how he was trying to form the Kenya Kwanza coalition towards the president, he tried to pick elected leaders. He knows that when you give him money now, like if the president will give me 100,000 shillings, he will go home and buy some few things I enjoy with the family. But if you give an elected MP, they'll travel to the village. And when they go to the village, they'll put this money into something that the Wananchi will feel, and that's popularity. So I think that's why you're trying to tell them, maybe your popularity is now affecting mine. The president is also aware that the ground is shifting. And someone is saying now, should you do opinion polls now about President Ruto's approval rating to really go down? Remember the last time they did one, they showed that 78% of Kenyans believe Kenya is going in the wrong direction. And for me, that's not what I celebrate. Me, I want to celebrate how can we move from there, because Kenya is our country. All of us are Kenya. Kenya should actually move to the right direction. But just to answer something which is very critical, which you asked before, the structural government. If you ask me, Fred, to solve the problem we have, we need to have two friends on our side. I will tell you later on if you ask me who are the two enemies, but there are two friends and two enemies. The two friends, one is decency. Decency is a way by, if you are an MP, why are you oversighting how monies are being used, then you have CDF. Remember that this current parliament, we had a lot of people returning back to parliament, not because they are competent, because of CDF. If you take away that CDF from these MPs, you'll find that they'll be replaced by somebody who's more competent like him, because he will not have the legacy of CDF to manipulate things on the ground, to do some projects last minute. So I'm thinking that if we are decent state, we need to remove that CDF from the MP so that your work is one, representation, legislation, and budgeting. And that focus that you are being called, like the Speaker of National Assembly said, that MPs are village ATMs, that's why they need a CDF. I think that one, you still remember, that is the statement, accurately reported, isn't it? I think that is moving away from being decent. Decency is key. Where the president is president, do your work. The executive, we have the parliament doing their work, judiciary doing their work. We Kenyans also do our work to support our state. And actually tell young people, when you go to social media and tweet and said, Kenya is like a mortuary, yet we want tourists to come here to invest, we need investors to come here so that we can get jobs. We are being our enemy. If you go to Korea, you go to Japan, you see young people tweeting and telling you, please come visit my country. We have Lake Naivasha. You can be able to go to Amboseli. Have Kenyans ever tweeted saying, guys, Amboseli is booming. Look at the Mara. You know, we are just tweeting and saying problems. So the second friend is opportunity. If we have decency and everybody has equivalent opportunity, pressure will come away from always saying the president, because now it looks like the president is the opportunity. He is everything. Anything going wrong is the president. So take away the heat from the president and let us also know we have a role to play as citizens, and then let us create equal opportunity for everybody.
Chebunet, as we finalize on this issue.
Right now, to talk about popularity really is ridiculous, because right now Kenyans are they're dealing with their basic needs. So if you do popularity ratings and these info track things that they are doing here, nobody is interested with popularity now. People are interested, what will they eat?
So is the president right that they should wait and become popular at the right time?
So the president is very right. When you go to the village there, even people clapping now, because I'm a Mwishimiwa also in the village there. People clapping. Nobody claps anymore. Because at the end of the day, people will be checking what is the price of maize. Yeah? As the government improved on the price. Is the National Cereals and Produce Board, when are they opening their stores? So being popular at the wrong time, I think if there is something that the president has said, this is very good, because people expect cheap popularity, and yet the common Mwananchi, they're going through tough times.
Okay, and this is definitely a conversation that will continue, given that the price of fuel is set to go up probably by next Tuesday, immediately after that holiday for planting and growing trees. I want us to move on to another big talking point, and that's what's happening at the Senate. today. It's also captured on the front pages of the dailies. Is there light at the end of the tunnel for Mwangaza? The case against Kawira Mwangaza to impeach or not? These are the top two dailies that we have. Now, the Senate today will vote on whether or not to impeach or to uphold the impeachment of Governor Kawira Mwangaza of Meru. But before that, the governor will be given an opportunity to defend her case and to plead her case before the Senate. Now, a lot has been said about the allegations. And yes, Professor, you mentioned something to do with CDF and how it does not tie into the whole concept of our constitution. If we may consider the kind of relationship that the county assemblies, MCAs, and their respective county executives and the governors have had, the biggest problem has been what they're calling ward allocations, ward development fund. And the genesis of the bad blood between the county assembly in Meru and the governor, Kawira Mwangaza, even that led to the very first impeachment last year, was the same issue. A disagreement over whether or not some money should go directly to each county. That is a conversation we should be having. When you listen to the kind of the 7 allegations against leveled against Governor Kawira Mwangaza, they did not make mention of the issue of ward allocation fund because it is not provided for in the law. But do you think the Senate is actually considering that? That probably the problem is bigger than what is laid before them? Dr. Lester.
I think the governor is facing a very serious accusation from the county assembly. And it's a similar one that she faced in her first impeachment. This is the second impeachment she's going through. You remember there was misuse of misappropriation, misuse of county resources, nepotism and related ethical practice, bullying, vilification, and demeaning other leaders. I think what I'm trying to understand from the counties is that the members of county assemblies are trying to find a way that they can be relevant, they can be given resources, and they can be tipped. This has happened in many counties. I know very well Mandera County, which I come from. The governor has to be very, acceptive or receptive to the members of county assembly so that they're able to push his agenda. This has been across all other counties. In the first term of county government, the second one, and the third one now. The third one has become a bit tight because the government resources have shrinked. And therefore, before we knew we had several millionaires, we call them overnight millionaires from the county, and MCS were part of those millionaires. We know someone earning around 150 or 200,000, but driving four-wheel drive and having a big mansionette in Nairobi, or a flat that is meant for business in Nairobi. Precisely, I'm talking about Mandera County, and I'm sure it is common in all other counties. This is because of corruption. Therefore, I think Kawira Mwangaza, the governor for Meru, has not given in the traditional way of taming MCS. And therefore, once she has lost the grip, and she doesn't have money to do it again, because before people, the trickling of resources was high. There were quite a number of development projects which were coming into the counties, and they were able to extend hands to the MCS. It is not their interest. When you look at the key thing they discuss outside the accusation, is because if they mention the ward administration fund, that is something that needs to go through certain process, legal process, so that those allocations are legalized. Yes. They don't get things like CDF, because CDF is not still legal. They're still struggling to legalize it. They are losing the grip of the way the members of parliament have lost grip in oversight for the executive.
And it takes us back to the issue of structure that I asked in relation to the executive and the other arms of government, that we are faced with a situation where the Constitution has described how our governance structure should be, but we see a proactive push towards defying the Constitution, because this differences between county assemblies and county executives was there as early as the first the very first county governments in Makueni, when Kivutha Kibwana was governor there, and he faced the same kind of resistance from the members of the county assembly. Now they're getting even stronger, and it's not just in Meru. In Kiambu here, Governor Matangi is facing impeachment. We've seen it elsewhere. Don't you think that we have allowed county assemblies to grow rogue, and now they're using the threat of impeachment to have their way?
First of all, Fred and my able panelists, let's agree that there's a context to this text. You know, text must be put in the context. Remember, just after the elections, MCAs were pushing for increment of salary and benefits. And I think that was kind of squashed. And most of the people who were involved in this questioning were mostly governors who said it's a little bit too much, it cannot be sustainable. And then also you have to understand that there has been push for the ward fund. That has also been something that some governors have given because there's a leeway you can do it, and other governors have not given, which means at the dispensation of the governor to give or not to give. And the other thing you have to understand, compare what is happening in Governor Mwangaza's county, Meru, and other counties. What has other governors done to become popular with MCAs? The ones who are very popular, I can talk about the governor of Siaya, where he used all the MCAs to try to impeach the deputy governor, meaning that the MCAs were at least on the side of the government 100%. That was unanimous. No single MCA actually opposed the motion. What does that governor do? I am in court in Siaya today at 9, whereby the governor, having done public participation with people proposed the projects they wanted, and he changed 98% of the projects at the county assembly, which means he sat with the MCAs and the speaker, and they agreed on how to change that thing to keep the MCAs happy. You understand? But the people suffering. So for me, I will tell you, what was easier for Governor Mwangaza? Take these guys to Seychelles for 1 week with allowances, and he's not impeached. Even if she can do that now, they will do that motion before maybe midday. In fact, Senate might not sit. So according to me, the governors who are trying to do the right thing, like look at McQueen, who suffered that, who was among the most performing governors. Remember, Governor Mwangaza was number one in the performance according to Infotrack.
She was top 10.
She was top 10. So a top 10 governor on her second impeachment shows potential, because I'm sure the survey was objective to the people. According to me, she might have her own issues. And Fred, let me tell you what, we're not from God. We don't have a perfect man. There's no perfect woman. There's no perfect family. There's no perfect world. There's no perfect country. There's no perfect governor. There's no perfect president, no perfect MP. Let us be a little bit understanding on how can the governor focus. And for me, we need to ask, is it good for the people of Meru to impeach him or not? But lastly, and interestingly, that's why even there's a problem in the structure. Do you know that impeaching a governor is not a legal process, but a political process? And that is where the problem is. How can we structure this thing to be more of legal than political? Because politics, anybody can win. Someone can buy even the Senate. Now, Fred, if you have 10 billion now, you can actually sponsor Mwangaza to go home today. I will show you how. You'll just sit with the senators and give them money. They'll impeach her. Or you can just find a way of colluding with some people to get this done. And in fact, somebody could actually be financing the MCAs right there. Second time, it's not an easy, this is a legal process that people have to vote. MCAs will vote with their stomach, like you said, that money counts and leadership comes last. And lastly, and I'm sorry to say this with all due respect, we had said before that there was a need for a minimum requirement of some kind of education that people need to have to be able to lead this. Remember, there used to be these maths in class 4, class 5, where you are being told, write this in words and write this in figures. How many people failed in your class? Very many people. So when you're talking about a governor which spends around 7 billion budget, these MCAs, how many of them could put their head around what 7 billion is? Some of us, if you ask on the street, go and do voice box. How many zeros is a billion? You might get only 2%, if not 1% knows. So what we are talking about here is that do the MCAs in Meru have what it takes to understand what is happening? At the same time, the governor herself, is she being very honest about something? For example, the issue of involving the husband. And those are, by the way, if you go to Siaya, if you look at the appointments there, you can tell the families who are in that county government, but no one is speaking. Only that Governor Mwangaza is a victim of her independence, that she ran on independent party, and some people are feeling that how can you just win as independent person and you want to be independent and you are a woman?
Allow me before you give Bonnet, I just want to add one thing into what Prof has said. Look at the kind of accusation they have put in place. For example, misuse of county funds. That's what they pointed out. We have structures, we have government institutions that are responsible for every aspect of accusation that they have tabled here. We do not have a single proof where maybe Anti-Corruption Commission has picked her by an issue with her and accused her and taken her to court and proved to her. Now, are the MCS taking a role that does not belong to them to accuse or to speech, to investigate and impeach governors? Do senators have mandate to entertain accusations that in essence will have been approved by other arms of the government before it comes to their table? What argument will they going to use to prove if they follow the impeachment by the MCS and impeach her? What actually legal proceedings have they used to confirm the accusation so that they prove her guilty? I think those are things that needs to be answered.
It is Prof said it is a political process, and the Senate today, whether or not they listen to the pleadings by the MCAs or the defense by the governor, they will simply take a vote. If at all the Kawira Mwangaza is impeached today, that has a potential of opening a can of worms. MCAs elsewhere will realize just how easy it is to impeach their governor. Don't you think that we are setting ourselves up for a bigger problem?
Impeachments are normal all over the world. In America, there are impeachments almost every month for senators, for even Congress and so forth. So I think all these governors, they should come to Wasingishu. They should visit Kotimoja and learn from him. You see, our governor has grown into where he is now. Remember, he has been an astute politician in Kanu and has grown until the other day when he came to UDA, he became the governor.
What has he done different?
The kind of PR and the kind of relations that manages the MCS, and the MCS pass very good
I happen to have it on good authority because I interviewed one of the MCAs, and he told me that the relative peace they enjoy in Uasin Gishu is because the governor agreed with the MCAs on the ward allocation fund.
In fact, the kind of things that they have instituted there, the governor has known how to work with the MCAs. So I think people like Mwangaza, first of all, you saw what happened in Nairobi the other day when some MCAs in the minority, they wanted to mess up and there were replacements. So being an independent candidate also is also one of the weaknesses. So Kawira Mwangaza also should try to tame our ego. Because if you find that even your sister-in-law, I don't know, your brother, I don't know, all these funny things, the people to suffer are the people of Meru. In fact, if Kawira Mwangaza today is not impeached or is impeached, the people who are going to suffer are the people of Meru, the people who voted for her. And right now, people are just praying and saying that something must happen in that county. Yes.
I think they also prove that the governor was being liked by the common people. That's why she was elected on an independent ticket. That, having said that, when I listen to the argument on the lawyer from the MCS who was representing MCS, his points were based on things which you can't prove, you know, hearsays or speculations. Why do I say that? They have not tabled a single proof that the governor had done this. For example, nepotism. who in that county is not entitled to get a job? Did they say that if she has employed someone who is closer to her or to her family, has been given an opportunity to work in the county, did they prove that this person has no proper qualifications to pick up that role? Did they check whether it is clearly a real relative of the governor, or they are just saying a family member, a relative, but they have not proved that? Because when you say that, bring the documentation. Okay. Say this one is what we have it, and this is what we see.
Because of time, I'll ask you also to make your final comments as you do that, as you conclude with that.
Right. I think so. I think one thing that I expect to come out of the Senate today is that I think we shouldn't open another Pandora's box. I know everyone who is not liked by any political party or the government of the day faces the SWOT. You remember Sonko had faced that. You remember what Waititu had similar things. These are people who, in essence, never had anything to or proof to be accused. These people were cleared by relevant authorities after they have been moved out of the offices. What happens? You have been removed illegally. When you are an employee and you are removed illegally, the court says you should be returned to your position. But these are political positions. You can't be returned. Immediately, there are a lot of other things. It only happened in Wajir, where the governor was removed and the High Court reversed it. That is a rare occasion. So I think the Senate must be wise. They must make a decision based on their merits of, or rather merits on the cases that has been put before them. And then they shouldn't start using MCS, or they shouldn't start using resources to destabilize governors who are, in essence, rightfully in that office, and they are doing their job very well, which has been proved with research which has been conducted by Infrared. Okay. Finally, it is a very hard time for us in the country. The cost of living has increased. Fuel is likely to be increased, as you have seen every other person say, speculating that things will be very hard for us. We know people who are employed, salaries have not been increased, but the cost of their living will be high. We expect the president to take also a soft heart to look at the common people, so that their interest and their livelihood is improved, so that we don't go through another difficult time. Finally, I know on Thursday the president will be talking to the parliament, the joint parliamentary seat, and we expect a lot of things to be tabled there by him in his speech. And above all, let him not give us a lot of projects that are likely to come. Let him give us clearly what he will going to do in addressing the current crisis of cost of living. Thank you very much.
Chebunet, you go next.
Thank you so much. I think one of the things that needs to happen in this government, like if you see the CBC system still needs some adjustments, the government should give money to the universities. Remember this new funding model that is being implemented in Kenya. We are really running into problems because the current CS needs to move with speed. We need money in the banks, so that even lecturers are promoted, teachers are promoted, everybody is promoted. So the education system actually needs to be looked into. I think this is going to feature on Thursday during the speech by the president. We need decision making. One of the problems that we have in the education sector is decision making. The CS needs to move with speed. Those categories that the CS is talking about. The other thing is the issue of pensions. Like when we see here, pensions are not remitted in universities and in colleges. The pensions of staff and workers needs to be remitted, so that these people retire will have a good time when they get back home. But the last thing I would like to say is that I would like to tell Kenyans, let's be patient, let's give the president time to implement his plan and also provide solutions, like the way the MPs have done, questioning the president and talking tough in State House. So all of us, let's come up with solutions to what is happening in Kenya.
Finally, Prof, you get to wrap it up for us in about a minute or so.
Yeah, so for me, first of all, on Governor Mwangaza, it depends on the framing of the problem in Senate that will determine her fate. If it is between Raila versus Ruto, it will take a different twist. If it's between Moses Kuria versus Rigathi Gachagua, it will take another twist. It's very framing, just like Finance Act was taken, Raila win versus Ruto. And I want us to frame the question as legal rather than for political. On the issue of the state of the economy, we went to an election with the hopes that both sides promised great things. So for me, it was whoever won, it was going to be great. Unfortunately, Kenya Kwanza had a plan. Azimio had what they call deep state and system. You know, the plan won more than deep state and the system. Now, at this time, I want us to stop blaming people. I want us to stop reminding Kenyans that they made a bad decision. I want us to come with solutions. A leader is seen more during crisis rather than during great times. And this is the time when we want leaders to emerge. Linda Jamii, we have decided not to be on the side of problems, but the side of solution. Okay. And the two problems we have is those who are cheating us, that the problem we are in now has been created by Kenya Kwanza. It started in 1992. I don't want to go details. The other problem, people telling us that they have a solution here. Remember in 2008, Raila Odinga, Martha Karua was there as a minister. Raila was a prime minister. Kalonzo was a vice president. Wetangula was a minister. So all these guys were there.
Yes.
So I don't think that anybody saying we have a better solution than the other is a good thing.
Okay.
All of us are here as a country. Let us find a solution together because we have a country to live and survive in.
Thank you so much, Professor Fred Ogola, governance expert, Philip Zil Chebunet, political communication expert, and Dr. Harun Isak Hassan, leadership and governance expert. Our panelists this morning as we look at the state of the nation, very many big headlines and talking points. Thank you so much for your opinions on these issues. Let's now go to the editorial comment. As President William Ruto prepares to deliver his State of the Nation address to Parliament on Thursday, Kenyans are anxiously waiting to hear whether or not he will address the pressing issue of the skyrocketing cost of fuel. Recent remarks by the CS in charge of energy, Davis Chirchir, hinting that petrol prices could reach a staggering 300 shillings per litre, have understandably caused considerable anxiety among the public. The burning question on everyone's mind is, what will happen to the already unmanageable cost of living? Over a year has passed since Ruto assumed power, and during his campaign he pledged to address the high prices of food, fuel, and the burden of overtaxation. But what we now see is a complete departure from these promises. The skyrocketing fuel prices not only affect individuals, but also pose a significant threat to the nation's economy. They have the potential to drive up inflation to unsustainable levels, hinder production, and inevitably lead to job losses. Yet our neighbors Uganda and Tanzania have contrasting examples. Uganda has rejected our pricing plan, and in Tanzania the cost of fuel remains considerably lower than that in Kenya. It is essential to question whether the only response from those responsible for solving our problems are to find a scapegoat every time. The blame game, whether directed at past administrations or external global forces or factors like the war in Ukraine or conflicts in the Middle East, will not alleviate the plight of the Kenyan people. It is time for a well-thought-out, proactive approach to cushion the public. In these challenging times, President Ruto's leadership will be judged not by words, but by the concrete actions taken to address the pressing issue of soaring fuel prices. And that is a TV47 editorial comment.